Hey, habit thrivers. If you're ready to rock your next chapter, this is your place. It's time to live your most fit, fearless, and fabulous life. I believe that our daily habits and routines set the foundation for achieving our dream lives and help us find more passion and clarity with less doubt and uncertainty. So let's get cozy. Grab your planner and your favorite beverage and come along with me on this journey of reclaiming your passions and finding new ones along the way. Welcome to the Habit Thrive podcast, a podcast for women in their me now years. Hi, I'm Lori, your host, and each week we come together to create habits, routines, and rituals to reclaim our power and our awesomeness to live our best chapters yet. For today, we are going to continue on our theme of rest, but we're going to approach it from an Ayurvedic perspective. So I know already. Now, actually, on that note, don't tune me out because I do know we have very, very personal feelings, beliefs, patterns, experiences with rest. For some of you, it might be, I try to rest, I can't rest. It becomes more difficult actually in these me now years. I've heard that for sure. And that the concept of resting feels for some of us that we're not productive, that we should be doing something, that it's a waste of time, really, and there are much better things to be doing. The fear also that if we stop for a moment and rest, we're not going to get going again, and that we get lazy with rest. And I'm actually in this episode going to address the difference between rest, relaxation, buffering, zoning out, and it's kind of interesting. This is again why I love doing this podcast, is that it makes me dig deeper into my relationship with some of these experiences, some of these terms even. And I don't get too wrapped up in the terms, but I'm really curious about my experience. And I'm going to bring it back around again to our me now years. And you would think that, okay, so I'm an empty nester now, I'm transitioning into retirement or retired. Why can't I rest? Like, isn't this the time that I should be taking naps in the afternoon or experiencing a little bit more restful periods during the day? And truly, when we haven't practiced a very intentional rest time, it feels very strange. It's not a comfortable place for us to be unless we've practiced it in a sense. I'm just going to throw that out there. And we make it intentional. That it's not just that we're flopping down on the couch exhausted at the end of the day and this is our rest time. In that situation, it's like it's coming up and it's not our choice. It's like a forced kind of rest. And in those rest periods, for me anyways, it actually doesn't really feel restful. I like to use the word ritual around resting. And this is going to bring me back around to Ayurveda. And what does Ayurveda have to say about rest? In particular, how it's related to our doshas. So if you haven't had a chance to do a dosha quiz, I'm going to recommend the Banyan Botanicals quiz, and I will put that in the show notes. I used to recommend also Chopra.com, but there have been some changes in Chopra world, so I'm not entirely sure where that quiz has gone or what's going on. So Banyan Botanicals is a very, very good quiz. It's not too long. You do need to set up an account, but that's fantastic because what happens is that when you do a dosha quiz, let's say in the winter now, and then you go back in the fall and you check in, it has your last questionnaire and your results. And that's what I love to do. I like to check in with my dosha questionnaires on a seasonal basis just to see how things are shifting. And so your questionnaire will tell you in this time, and we are actually in the winter Right now, we are in kapha time, which is for some of you, if you have kapha as your highest number, and this is when you're doing the questionnaire, when you come up with the highest number, that means the dosha that can more easily go out of balance. So in the winter, during kapha time, some of the symptoms in our body, sometimes of heaviness, sometimes of lethargy, even kind of mucusy, wet. That's what's going on in winter. Now, mind you, we are doing a little bit of a transition between Vata time into Kapha. Kapha, very much springtime, more so where it is really wet and mucousy and heavy. But you might be experiencing that feeling right now. So we're transitioning. And right now in the world, actually, a lot of us are Vata is high. And Vata is air and ether. There's just a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things floating around out there in the air. There's a lot of things coming through our social media, coming through media in general. And so when our Vata is high, this is the time that we're feeling a little more anxious, more unbalanced, more on edge. And so, not to be surprised when you're filling out, for those of you who have done the questionnaires over, let's say, even a few years now, that your Vata is higher. And what that means for rest, when we circle back to rest, is that if you have higher Vata, or you're noticing that your numbers are higher in that category, what it means again is that we are more unbalanced, perhaps more anxious, sleep disturbances, and that can be from a lack of rest. So this is when we go, 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 and we're doing too much. Too much is on our plate. And that can be happening right now in this winter season where things are hunkering down and there's a heaviness and our mind is fighting this. It's like, yeah, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. And you get this disharmony in your mind and your body. And that's where we actually feel quite disconnected. And so when you're filling out the questionnaire, even if you are Kapha, you see that as your higher number, but you see that your Vata is actually higher than it normally is, right? And this is the importance of, or the fun, I'm going to say, of doing your questionnaires. Then you're like, maybe I should be adding a little bit more rest now in January, and just being curious about it. Now for Pitta, if you normally have Pitta as your highest number, or you kind of go between Vata and Pitta, when they are unbalanced and perhaps lacking a little bit of downtime, a little bit of rest time, Pittas will be irritable. They will be impatient and will also have sleep disturbances, actually. Hard time winding down at night as well. And so if you recognize that in yourself, that impatience, that frustration, that irritability, again, very different than Vata. Vata, well, I mean, I'm a Vata. I can get irritable, but again, it's just a little bit more feeling unbalanced and not at ease. From a Kapha perspective, right now, again, as we are moving through the winter, if Kapha is your highest number, again, I'm going to come back to lethargy and apathy and not motivated. And you might wonder, well, if Kapha is my highest number and I'm feeling this, like I really shouldn't be resting, right? Because I will just sleep the whole day away. And so with Kapha, you're absolutely right when you're thinking this way, because we have the concept of again, rest that can be a little bit more of an active rest. Okay, so a little bit more of an active rest is doing something that is restful for you. And rest can be a passive rest where you are putting your legs up the wall. You are having a cup of tea and gazing out the window at I love this, right? This time of year when the sun is on the snow and there's sparkles and you can see icicles and different just things going on. And you might question, is this relaxation or is this rest? And part of this episode, and I'm going to say the podcast in general, is being curious about what is the difference in everything that we talk about, in habits and routines and rituals and patterns, in how you move through the day, because each one of us is so individual. And something that is rest for someone is relaxation for somebody else. Or you might be saying, this is not relaxing for me. So instead of sitting with a cup of tea and gazing out the window at 3 o'clock, you may feel like you want to go for a relaxation walk. It may not be a power walk. It can be something that you are drawing in, again, everything around you, all of your senses coming in. And it's not specifically to exercise, but it is for relaxation. It might be for resetting, especially in the winter as you come back in after that. So you're noticing, what does your body crave for rest or relaxation at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening? In the evening between 6 to 10 o'clock, this is kapha time. And that ability to, or the rituals, I'm going to say, to be able to unwind into the evening. It's perfect in the winter, but when we haven't, let's say, practiced it, it's not something that comes naturally. So really starting to think about what helps you wind down in the middle of the afternoon. I like to say between 2 and 4 o'clock. Even though that is vata time, for me, it's transition time. So it is, okay, what resets me for the rest of the day? It's kind of moving into that next phase of the day. So that, from a timing perspective for rest and relaxation, 2 to 4 o'clock for me, and I'd like you to notice this can be quite a transition time and quite a time to think about, okay, am I putting my legs up the wall? Am I going for a walk? Am I having a cup of tea and just resting and looking out the window? Am I having a nap? Very different. And you don't have to be stuck on one thing. Definitely from a seasonal perspective, not to be stuck on one thing. But even from the weekdays to the weekend, that kind of thing, and even day to day, depending on your schedule. So the evening, a different kind of rest and relaxation that helps you with the ultimate rest, which is sleep. And that brings me, as you're letting all of this percolate around a little bit, that brings me around to the why. Why can't I just rest at the end of the day, put my head on the pillow, and go to sleep? Here's the thing. If you are sleeping well, if you have energy during the day, if your digestion and your elimination is fantastic and your mood is solid, then you're good. You're absolutely good. And that combination of rest and relaxation that you are doing during the day is working for you. And so the only thing I might suggest with that is to celebrate that and to notice that. Because sometimes we feel uneasy and all of a sudden we can't sleep anymore. And we're like, what has changed? And sometimes it's some ritual or some activity of rest and relaxation during the day that somehow got pushed aside for all kinds of different reasons. And so you notice that. And then again, you are good. Now, if you are not sleeping well, if your energy is not good during the day, if you're up and down with your moods and feeling indecisive and uneasy, then I'm going to suggest that rest and relaxation can, number one, help with during the day, can help with your sleep at night, and can help you move through the day. And so what you might notice is that when you start to add these little periods of time, now it could be 10 minutes, 10-minute nap, 10-minute legs up the wall. I would like you to notice this as well. For some of you, you might say, I like to read a book in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. This is my relaxation. And that is relaxation for sure. What you might note about that is that's not necessarily rest, particularly for your eyes. I'm all about my eyes right now because I have some eye issues. And so I have been about resting my eyes. I've been about not, shutting down the screens for sure at 8 o'clock at night. Any opportunity that I have not to look at my device, for example, when I'm in line at the grocery store, at the post office, when I'm a passenger. This is a big thing. When I'm a passenger in a vehicle, that I'm taking my eyes out. I'm looking at the trees and the rocks in Northern Ontario, right? Trees and rocks and lakes, rocks and trees and lakes. That's what we're looking at. And road signs, thinking about when you were younger and we used to be looking at playing those games with the road signs and how many white trucks are there out there. And this was keeping our eyes to the horizon, keeping them open and out as opposed to on our devices. And I'm here to tell you right now, as I've started to play with this is huge. And this is partly for me resting my eyes. Now, when I rest my eyes with an eye pillow on for 10 minutes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, listening to a meditation, that is habit stacking crazy for my mind, my body, for my eyes. And circling back to why is that important? Because as we prepare, going to say from 4 o'clock in the afternoon, our cortisol, our stress hormone is starting to come down. It's starting to prepare us for sleep. And as the light changes, the chemicals in our body, switching those neurotransmitters from serotonin to melatonin. And what we're doing when we're resting and we're honoring this time is that we're helping our cortisol come down. So that when you are moving into the evening and it's dark and you're getting ready for bed, you've had this cortisol pause in the afternoon, as opposed to keeping the cortisol up, going like mad through your entire day. And actually, this is why when you go to an activity at night, and those of you, I know some of you who are listening, right? You used to play basketball, you used to play hockey, you might still be doing that, pickleball. Well, you can't sleep afterwards. Not only is your body hyped up, your mind is hyped up, but your cortisol is sky high. And so it takes that time for it to come down for you to be able to let go into sleep. When you take these restful pauses during the day, we have little cortisol breaks. Cortisol starts to come down. We're literally preparing for sleep. And sometimes I'll even say we're preparing for sleep from the time that our eyes open in the morning. Like, I know that sounds a little crazy, but this is how I'd like you to think about it as you transition through your day. And it's actually really curious and fun to play with. So what you have from a rest perspective, you can decide on that. I am suggesting that it's not Netflix, it's not Crave, it's not social media. Now, you might say to me, that's my way to relax. That is my way to relax in the evening. And that is, again, calling it out. Relaxation, the difference between relaxation and rest. And even from, let's say, a Netflix and a Crave and a social media, it can have the opposite effect. It can keep our cortisol up. So being very vigilant about what you're allowing in the evening and setting an intention to have this as a relaxation and setting an intention to turn it off so that you can notice the transition between relaxation to rest. And the difference is, for example, in Pinterest, any kind of social media scrolling, any kind of, and I'm particular to Netflix and Crave and the streaming because, again, it draws us in and it keeps us going. And we actually get to the point that we can't, it's like we can't fight it in a sense. We're almost too tired to stop. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I would really love you to play with that point. It's like when I have that extra sip of coffee when I know I'm done. I really don't want that extra sip and then it tastes like motor oil. And it's like that next Netflix episode or that next little bit of scrolling. I just feel yucky. And I'm past that point. I want to stop before that point. That's not relaxation anymore. For me, that's irritation. I've just, And there's no reason beating myself up about it. And in fact, this is why I'm going to come back to Ayurveda. There is a term in Ayurveda, and I just popped into my mind, but honest to goodness, I'm going to put it in the show notes because I can't pronounce it. What it means is it is related to our wisdom and our intellect when we know that we are doing something in the moment that is not good for us, but we don't stop. And in fact, sometimes we think to ourselves, I really can't stop. And it is related to scrolling. It is related to watching TV. It is really related to eating or drinking something that in that moment, it's actually crimes to the intellect, I think. I'm going to put that in the show notes though. But it's when we know that we're doing something and we're just doing it anyways. It takes too much effort to stop doing it, or we convince ourselves that one more of this, what's the big deal? Even though at the back of our mind, we know it is a big deal. And that's where the disharmony and the disconnect happens. What I love about Ayurveda is that's 5,000 years of history. So no wonder we find this challenging. And instead of piling shame on top of ourselves, on top of the fact that we just, stayed up till 1:00 in the morning watching something we didn't want to watch, or we stayed scrolling, instead of piling shame, we recognize that that's what happens. That's what happens. That is our primitive brain. They wrote this in Ayurvedic writing like 5,000 years ago. So again, no wonder it's tough. And so compassion. Oh, okay. I get that. I will put that term in the show notes. I'm so glad that popped back into my head as well. To circle back around to rest, noticing if you need it. Notice when you have it, how does it feel? The difference between rest and relaxation for you. The difference between rest, relaxation, and buffering and zoning out. 3 different states. And it's okay to have, in fact, I would suggest having all 3. The difference is with awareness and with intention. Also, then knowing the effects on your body. There's so much that is, in a sense, not in our control. And I shouldn't say it that way. Let's say there's lots more coming in at us from everywhere now. Still always within our control, but there's a lot more to manage, information-wise, imagery-wise, positivity, negativity. There is a lot more to manage. And so our muscles of management and being vigilant and holding on to what is sacred to us has become that much more important. And for me, it is rest. And so as we come to the end of this episode today, give yourself a big compassionate hug. And remember that 5,000 years of history around crimes to our intellect. We're aware of it now. We have shone the light on this. And so with awareness comes power. Let's take an inhale in. A nice, relaxing exhale out. Have a fantastic week exploring rest and relaxation. And I will talk to you again next week.
If you love this episode, I guarantee you're going to love exploring all the amazing opportunities that await us in reclaiming our awesomeness together. So come on over to my Facebook group, Women's Wellness Community for women wanting to rock their Me Now years, or let's connect over on Instagram at Habit Guru 365 and make the Habit Guru podcast your healthy new habit.